past few years has seen a surge of interest in the study of ancient synagogues, the history, architecture, symbols, and inscriptions found in ancient Israel. In the next few minutes, we will explore together several of the most prominent and best preserved of the sites of ancient Israel, which date from the 1st through the 7th centuries of this era. We'll visit sites and museums, and we will look at these remains to learn from them what we can about the religion and society of the formative period of early Rabbinic Judaism and early Christianity. As you can see from the map, we'll be visiting sites throughout Israel. The sites we will visit come from the south of Israel, including Jerusalem, Ein Gedi, and Jericho, and from the north as well, from sites in the Beit She'an Valley and the Galilee, including Rehov, Beit Alpha, Capernaum, Chorazim, Bar-Am, and Chamat Tiberias. The first synagogue which we'll visit is found inside of a building in Jericho. One of the major issues in the research into ancient synagogues is the relationship between prayer and the synagogue. In this case, as we come inside the synagogue in the beautiful city of Jericho, you'll see that on the floor is a mosaic. The mosaic, which some scholars have found bears very strong parallels to prayers that are recited by the Jews of Persia and China. This mosaic reads, "May they be remembered for good. May their memory be for good, all this holy congregation, great and small, who with the help of the King of the universe gave donations to make this mosaic. May he who knows their names and the names of their families inscribe them in the book of life with all the righteous." These words are recited in the prayers in many synagogues, and it concludes with fellowship to all of Israel. As we look at ancient synagogues, we'll have to consider the relationship between the synagogue and prayer. Our synagogues, which we'll be visiting, date from the 1st down through the 7th centuries. All of them have decorations, many of them mosaics. Some will have the lulav, the menorah, which you see here, and others may have inscriptions, as the inscription that we have in this synagogue, a famous inscription, Shalom al Yisrael, peace upon Israel. Mosaics are often extremely well preserved. As we move up through the valley, paralleling the Jordan River, we come upon a site that does not look as if it's a very impressive synagogue remains. On the side of the road, as I drove looking for it, I passed by it 2 or 3 times. It's the ancient site of Rehov, the synagogue of Rehov. Its fame lies in the fact that at this site was discovered the longest inscription in content and size in all of ancient Israel. You can see how the site is relatively undeveloped. And in fact, as we looked around for the inscription, we were quite disappointed because it had been taken off to a museum. The inscription is important not only for archaeological but historical, geographical, literary, legal, and linguistic reasons. It's very well preserved, and it has occupied the attention of scholars for quite some time. The inscription itself found in the synagogue, which is not marked, and as we looked for the markings, we found none until we circled around behind the sign to find a little note, ancient synagogue, Bate HaKnesset Rehov. The 29-line inscription which comes out of this site is by far the most important synagogue inscription found in Israel, more important than that which we'll see later from Ein Gedi. It's remarkable in its contents because it attests to the fact that synagogues were sites not only for ancient prayer, as these archaeologists will attest, but for the regulation of agricultural matters as well. This text of this mosaic deals with agricultural precepts concerning the Holy Land, the tithes, the seventh-year produce in various districts in the country, and the divisions of the country as well. The inscription reads in part, Shalom, these fruits are forbidden at Beit Sha'an in the 7th year, and in other sabbatical cycle years they are tithed as demai, the marrows, the melons, the cucumbers, the parsnips, and the mint, which is bound by itself. You can see, as we move on to Beit Alpha, a variety of mosaics and decorations and inscriptions that are found in the synagogues. In front of us here is the very famous floor of the mosaic at the Beit Alpha synagogue, discovered by accident in a kibbutz. These pictures are depictions of the sacrifice of Isaac from Genesis 22. And of course, the most famous part of this mosaic floor is the zodiac, which you can see in a rather dimly lit synagogue. The inscriptions also are quite interesting, as they're both in Hebrew and in Greek. As we move on to the synagogue in Chamat Tiberias, we'll see that the zodiac recurs there as well. In fact, scholars have wondered why it is that ancient synagogues have zodiac signs so frequently in Israel. One of the most beautiful sights is a synagogue in Chamat Tiberias, just a short drive to the north on the shores of Lake Kinneret. The remains of Chamat Tiberias extend from the hot springs of Tiberias to the southern boundary of the ancient city. It's not certain that this is the place referred to as Chamat in antiquity, but it is certain that the synagogue here and its symbolism is among the most dramatic found in all of Israel. Here you can see perhaps one of the best preserved sets of symbols in a mosaic floor: lulav, menorah, shofar, incense shovel, ark, and inscriptions as well. The inscriptions, again in Greek and Hebrew, and the zodiac dominate this beautiful mosaic floor. The synagogue itself has been built and rebuilt several times. There are levels that date from the 1st century BC down to perhaps the 5th or 6th centuries CE, as this site was a very well-known synagogue site throughout ancient